What's up guys? Now you guys must remember this little Mini-ITX build that I actually did for the studio. We built it into this NZXT H1 case and I've decided to actually give it a bit of an upgrade. We are going to be changing the CPU in this today from the i3 that was actually inside of it to an i7 processor. But before we do that, we need to do some work on the case itself, because even though these cases are pretty amazing to be honest, the cooling solutions they actually provide in them are not very quiet. So we're going to quieten this system down by changing the fans in it and the cooling solution as well. And for anybody out there that actually has one of these and has that same issue, you're going to learn how to actually do it. Now the system that we actually have currently has an i3 12100F. It's not the best CPU, they're pretty fast and you can do a lot with them, but I need to actually upgrade this because I generally use this machine as a bit of an office PC really. It's perfectly fine with the i3, but when you want to do anything like video editing or photo editing, which I tend to do a little bit of course I need something a little bit bigger, and the CPU that I'm actually going to be installing today is this i7 12700K. The problem with this CPU though is that it does run a little bit warm, particularly for a tiny box like this. So we do need to change the cooling solution in there because I don't believe the 140mm all-in-one cooler is that good. To do the cooling upgrade on this system, we actually reached out to our friends at Noctua, who provided us with some excellent products. We've got a new CPU cooler, we've got a bunch of more fans, and we've also got a replacement fan for the CPU cooler because I didn't like the brown, I wanted to go black. So a big thank you to Noctua for supporting this project. The first thing that we need to do though is obviously tear this case down and dig into what actually needs to be changed. Now we're not going to go into detail about how to tear this system down because we did that in a previous video. We will link it so you guys can go watch it if you need to. But what we want to replace in here is a number of fan systems. The first one is obviously going to be in the power supply itself. Now the whole case of this does have 3 fans in total, and 2 of the fans, the case fan plus the all-in-one cooler fan, are controlled by NZXT cam. If you don't have NZXT cam, they kind of run at 100%, and to be honest, even running NZXT cam, there doesn't seem to be that much configuration on them. It actually uses a controller in the back here, which I think we're going to get rid of as well. And you can kind of configure the fans a little bit, but they're not great in terms of what you can do with them. And that's even worse when it comes to the power supply. The power supply fan doesn't actually connect to the controller, so there's no way of actually controlling it. And it pretty much runs constant 100% all of the time. There is no 0 dB setting on this fan in here, so it can get a little bit annoying, particularly when the case is at this kind of level when you're sitting at a desk, because it's generally in ear kind of height and you can always hear it running. So we're going to be replacing the fan inside the power supply. We're going to be replacing the entire all-in-one cooler system. I'm sure we'll use it for something else later on, maybe a mod job. And we're also going to change this fan in the back here, which I believe is a 92mm, because I just want everything to be controlled from the motherboard. To continue on with this, obviously I need to take all of the components out of the case. It is going to be a little bit of work, but I'm sure we'll get there. So what I'll do is I'll tear all the components out, we'll lay them all out, and then we'll go through the parts that we're actually going to replace them with. So I've now stripped down everything from the case. We've got the motherboard out, which is over there, still strapped to the all-in-one cooler. We've got the fans out, we've got the power supply out, and the first one that we're actually going to tackle is the actual case fan here. The one that's removed is this 92mm NZXT one. The cable's reasonably short, but this is not a quiet fan at all. In actual fact, we're going to be replacing it with this one. This is the Noctua NF-A9 PWM. That's going to give us way more control, particularly when this was going to that weird controller thing. And it's also going to be much quieter because we know Noctua actually are. The fan itself is this one, and I've already installed the the little rubber mounts that go into the corners. They actually come in lots of different colors. You get them in red, blue, black, green, white, and yellow. You can actually match them up nicely to whichever case or whatever you're doing. And I'm simply going to actually install this in just like this. I think what I'm going to do is wrap that cable around there. Probably just see if I can get it into the mount. So that's going to be easy enough just to install into there. Of course, we want it the other way around because it is an exhaust fan. So we're going to actually put it this way round, I think. We're going to go that way. So we're going to install it into that way, and then it's obviously going to pull the air out of the case and out through the side. So let's get this fan installed, and then I'll get all of the cables and stuff clipped up, and then we're ready to do the next fan. Now with the case fan installed, I'm going to tackle the power supply next. It's going to be one of the most difficult ones, to be honest, because of course we're going to have to open up a power supply. Do not do this if you don't know what you're doing, because you can actually completely shock yourself even if it hasn't been on for a while. First thing I'm going to do is actually remove all of the cables here, and one of the bonuses to actually doing this is because we don't have that weird controller thing anymore, and we're going to get rid of this, we're going to cut down on a lot of the wiring. So we're going to cut down on the wiring from that and take that out of the unit. And we also don't need the SATA connections from the power supply anymore, because I don't use SATA drives. I actually removed the SATA bay from this case just to improve airflow, but we can also get rid of that cable too. Of course, we still need the cables for the CPU, the motherboard and the graphics card, but I'm just going to yank these out of here, put them to the side, so at least we can get into this unit without actually having all the cables hanging everywhere. As we said when we actually reviewed this case, the cables that they provide you with the power supply are not actually that swappable. They are customized to the power supply and the case, so you only get tiny little short ones just like this. This is your 24 pin and it's really short, so you're not going to be able to use this in many other cases. Maybe if you do get a smaller case and it actually reaches, you'll be fine, but apart from that, we've got a pretty decent length one for the CPU, and we have these tiny little short ones for the graphics card. So you've got to be aware of that if you are actually going to be fitting that. But we'll just drop these cables down here and we'll take a look at the power supply. Now these power supplies are little tiny units, and of course we need to undo some screws to actually get into it. We do have this screw here, here and here, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to have to take apart to get into there, because we've got the little warranty void sticker. So we'll just crack straight in and we'll ignore that warranty void sticker altogether. Now with the power supply open, we can actually see what's in here. We do want to disconnect this little cable there, because that will actually get us our fan, and we do not want to touch anything in there. We want to put that completely to the side. This one has been discharged for a few days now, but like I say, I recommend you don't actually touch this if you don't know what you're doing. Inside here, we do have our little fan, and hopefully we do have a replacement here in the form of the Noctua NF-A9x14. So it is about 14 millimeters actual depth, but we'll crack into there and we'll show you what you get. Now with this little 14mm one, you also do get the little corners that you can actually mount. We're not going to fit them because what we don't want to do is add any more to the depth. This should actually fit into the case perfectly fine, although actually I think looking at it, we do have a little bit of depth there, so I might actually put the rubber mounts on the outside just to, you know, keep things nice and safe. But because we're not actually going to be connecting this into the power supply cable, we're going to be connecting it to the motherboard using the 4-pin connection. Obviously it's not going to fit with this little 2-pin here, so we need to strip this fan out and then we'll install this one back in, put the unit together, and hopefully we can run this line outside of the power supply somehow, and then it'll go straight to the motherboard. When actually changing the fan from a power supply, you will find that they have this little plastic thing inside. That is actually to divert air to the right components, so you do not want to miss out that. What I'm going to do is actually transfer it straight over before I install the fan so that I don't forget. And we'll obviously need to make sure that we fit the fan into the right place. Otherwise it's going to be wrong when it actually starts to try and cool the rest of the power supply. But we'll just fit that little plastic thing here. And then all we need to do is remove this fan from the unit, just like a normal fan, straight from these screws, swapping the fan straight over, and then obviously screwing it back in. We will need to figure out how to actually get this cable outside of the power supply, but that's the next step. Let's actually get it screwed in and then we'll have a look and see what we can actually do. Now I've managed to get the fan inside the power supply, but we did need to do a little bit of modification. On the back here, I actually used a little tiny file just to file a little bit of the steel away so that we can actually have the little 4-pin plug poke out the back. I've actually made sure that it actually pokes out where the other connections are, so it's not sticking outside of the case. And then of course it came with an extension, so we could just simply plug into that extension around the system into some kind of header somewhere, and we'll set that header up to be a nice little kind of fan curve to keep the power supply nice and cool, but also keep the noise levels down. Now with the power supply and the case fan actually all sorted, we do need to tackle this motherboard. So this is the all-in-one cooler here. It does have a weird cage on it. I'm not actually going to remove the case from here. I'm going to leave that in because I'm not even sure how you actually get that thing out. But we do need to disconnect it from the motherboard, and we're going to replace it with something else. The cooler that we're going to replace it with is the Noctua NHL12S. Now this one does come with a brown fan, so of course I asked them for a black one because I want the system to go in. So this fan is just simply going to replace the one on this cooler. You do need to be careful when you're actually replacing the cooler in such a case like this, because you need to make sure it is super low profile. Fortunately, Noctua do have on their website a list of all the coolers that fit this exact case and the CPUs that they will support. So go check that out. I will make sure that I put a link down below. This is one that will actually support the 12700K. If you have a smaller CPU like the original i3 12100F, you can get away with much smaller coolers and they're a little bit cheaper. These ones are not too bad. They're not that expensive, particularly for what they're going to cool. So it's not too bad all round. But I do actually like the look of this cooler. It is pretty funky. We have a big box of accessories here, which is going to obviously be the plating system to actually fit that in. We are going to, of course, be fitting this, but I need to swap the fan over first. So what we'll do is we'll crack open this other fan and we'll see what kind of thing we need to do. Do we need to actually do anything to it? Comparing it to the fan that's actually on the cooler already, this one does come with the little rubber mounts in the corners, and this one doesn't come with them as standard. They are provided though, you can simply get them out of the box. So what we'll do is we'll stick some little corners on it. We're going to go for black again because we want this system to be completely blended in. We don't want any kind of odd colours sticking out. They are simply just some little stickers for these ones. You can just stick them right into the corner here, and that will actually help any kind of vibrations to the system, particularly when it's going onto a cooler like this, because particularly with your fins, if there's any vibration there, you're going to hear it through the system. So we'll get these little corners stuck on, and then we'll figure out how to swap the fan over and get it installed onto the motherboard. Now, while I was actually digging through the instructions to put this cooler together, I realized that actually you have to fit the fan afterwards. You can't fit it before. And basically it's because you need to be able to get through the cooler itself to screw it down. That is actually the stage we're at now. So all we need to simply do is line this cooler up just like you do with all Noctua coolers, and then using our Noctua long screwdriver. They do provide you one actually in the box, but we actually bought one ourselves. They provide like a little Allen key version. You have to put it through the end and then just start to screw it down, making sure it's even each side. This will of course cover your RAM, so if you are going to be using one of these coolers, make sure you have low profile RAM. We actually got away lucky because we installed low profile RAM before. It is the Crucial Pro series, the DDR4 Pro series. It's very nice RAM, it's reasonably fast, and to be honest, it goes with a system like this quite nicely. And there we have it. The board is actually now built. We've got the fan on. It should be drawing the air in through the front onto the board and dissipating air just like any normal cooler would do. I'm not quite sure if you can fit the fan this side or not. I don't think you can. I think it only fits that way round, particularly with the height that we've got in this case. But for any of you out there that do build Mini-ITX systems, you'll be used to seeing this where everything is super tight. So now what we need to do is actually just get it reinstalled back into the case, and we're pretty much good to go with a nice quiet NZXT H1. Now, while I was actually installing it into the case, I kind of realized that if we actually put it there, we can see that we've got plenty of space on the top for the fan there. So what I might do is actually take that fan from underneath, swap it over to the top so that the air is being forced down onto the board, just like it was before with the other system. And that way we're pretty much sure that we haven't actually broken anything or made anything actually worse. So what I'm going to do is actually flip that fan around, and then we'll install it straight into the case, and we'll see what it kind of looks like once we've done a bit of cable management. Okay, so there we have it. We actually have everything done now. There was a little bit of awkwardness when it came to cable management, particularly because of this cooler. Obviously, when it is the all-in-one cooler, as you drop this tray out, you can pretty much reach everything inside the case. But when you actually have this type of cooler in there, you can't really, because you're just kind of getting your fingers into places and trying to do that. But we managed to achieve it. We have swapped this case fan here for a Noctua. It's going to be really, really silent. And the cable runs pretty much with everything else and plugs into a header. We also have the power supply fan that has been changed. That is also running out here, and it follows the kind of chain of all the other cables down to a header. And of course, where the fan comes out here, it is a little bit of a long cable on this cooler, because it would have been nice if they'd have just given a little tiny bit more of an extension at the fan itself, but they give you a kind of an extension that long. So what we had to do is kind of run it back and then run it back again just to actually get it into here nice and tidy. Everything seems to be reasonably tidy. We just need to put it all together again, and that will be it. A fully upgraded system with a new CPU and a whole new cooling solution that's going to be pretty quiet. For anybody that wants to actually do this to their own NZXT H1, make sure that you do check out the Noctua website. I will provide a link down below, like I said before, to a page where they kind of give you what will and won't fit, particularly depending on the CPU and cooler. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content and you want to see where we take this little system next, because I'm sure we'll be doing something else to it. And I'm sure, as always, we'll catch you guys in the next one.